Hey YouTube, Ronix with yet another tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll show you guys the in-depth skin retouching tutorial, and I want to show you guys how I process my raw images and color grading, and it's also going to be part of skin retouching, dodging and burning, and eye whitening, and finally how to export your images so that they don't lose any color when you post them on social media or different websites, or when you put them on maybe a different device. So let's kick in and start editing this very image. And as you can see, I usually start in Capture One, and I'm using Capture One 21. So this is the image we are going to be retouching, and it is for Fante. Yeah, she is a beautiful model, and you can see the makeup was not too much. So we want to do the adjustments for the raw file. So I'm in Capture One 21, and usually the reason that's why I have my interface on my right hand side is because I came right here and I came to workspace, window workspace, then I came to migration, so that I can easily have a flexible or a Lightroom like kind of interface. So usually I first of all come to my levels and I pull them in, then I come to my whites, I also pull them in. So don't mind if at all the image is getting dark. Then I come to my highlight and knock it in because I was getting an exposure warning. Then after doing so, I usually come to my whites and also knock them in. Then I come to my shadow and just slightly pull it up. Then add a little bit of clarity to around 5 to the image. Then after doing so, I add some blacks. And I come all the way down to this ICC profile and I change it from Canon 6D generic to Pro standard to get rid of the magentas that are in the image. And here we are right now. So I feel like the image has turned out to be slightly underexposed, and I want to fix that in a bit. I'm going to come to my contrast and add some contrast and also brighten up the image a little bit. So as you can see, the tones on the hand and the neck are not the same as the tones on the face, so we want to fix that. I'm going to come right above here and I'm going to create, right click and come and create a new field layer. And after creating that, I'm going to scroll all the way down to my color editor option and get my color picker tool. So I'm going to zoom in by holding down Command plus and sample the skin area I want for this image. So for this case, I just want my skin to look like that, or the overall skin to look like that. And I'm going to come to the uniformity and I'm going to start moving this slider until I feel like I'm having some kind of uniform skin tones. And I'm also going to come to the saturation and also intensify it, then also to my lightness like that. So I feel like the image is really warm, and I'm simply going to move this towards the magentas. You can see when I move it towards the left, I get magentas into the image. So simply I'm just going to put some slight magentas in it, and this is all I have done for the adjustments in Capture One. This is my first stage of color grading. So I'm going to come right here to image and I'm going to come to edit with and Photoshop 2020 to edit this image further. So I'm going to export it as TIFF and I'm going to go to edit variants, and it is going to be exported into Photoshop for further color grading and skin retouching. So basically it is going to take less than a minute, and I mean a few seconds, and you're going to be right into Photoshop. So here we are in the magical world of Photoshop. So we want to retouch this very image, and as usual for all my images I prefer to first of all crop them in a ratio of 4 to 5 before I can do anything. But I feel like this image is not balanced and is on this other side, so we just want to fix that using the crop setting. So I think right here we are almost good to go. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move this in so that we can only have the face, so that it slightly looks balanced for this case. So I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard, and here we are right now. So just want to retouch this image. So first of all, I prefer to clean up the image. I'm going to hit Ctrl or Command J to create a new layer. I'm going to get my spot healing brush tool and make sure, because since this is a new filled layer and it is almost as a background, I'm not going to enable sample all layers. I'm just going to leave it unchecked and zoom in and just clean up this image. And I'm just going to take like a minute trying to do this, because blemish remover is going to contribute over 80% to the overall retouched image. So that's why you always have to take your time while removing blemishes. And thank you guys for the love and support you show me on YouTube, because your support and your comments keep on motivating me to help someone out there who may be struggling with retouching or editing or even photography in general. And I think very soon I'm going to drop you guys my behind the scenes videos. I know I've promised and sang this over and over again, but I think the next video after this one is going to be a behind the scenes video on this channel. So, and we're going to be having so many of those series of my behind the scenes. So stay tuned, and we are going to be learning how I take these images, because we also have to learn how to take the images rather than just retouching them or editing them basically. So I'm just going to clean up this image, and I think I'm almost done. I'll do the further cleanup later on in the tutorial after doing the skin retouching on this very image. So I'm just trying to rush through, but what I would advise is you always have to be careful and take your time with the blemish removal or the removal of blemishes from your portraits before doing the skin retouching. I think right now we are good to go. So we're going to just create a new layer on top of this layer 1, and after doing so, we're going to first of all rename them by just double clicking, and we're going to name this low frequency, and we're going to name this high. As usual, I don't want to use any shortcuts, so I'm just going to do so. Hit enter, turn off the high frequency and select the low frequency. Remember, this low frequency base usually contains our colors and the skin tones. That's what we only want to remain with this. So we don't want to have any textures in this image. You're going to come to filter, and you're going to come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So we're going to move this slider until, so you have to make sure you get an area that has more textures than you zoom in. So for this case, we're going to be using this. So we're going to start moving this radius until we have completely lost out and we can no longer see the textures right there. So you have to move this until they start to disappear. I think at 10 they have really disappeared. I'm going to hit OK. Remember, now the image is going to turn into a blurry image, and that's not what we're going in for. We're going to select the high frequency layer and activate it. And usually we have an 8-bit and 16-bit image. So as you can see right now, we have a 16-bit image. So come to image and come to apply image. And for an 8-bit image, you're going to first of all select the low frequency layer and change the blending mode to subtract. If at all you have an 8-bit image, opacity 100, scale is 2, offset 128, and make sure invert is not checked. So these are the settings for an 8-bit image, and if at all you have a 16-bit image, these are going to change. So make sure you always know the bit ratio of your images. So if at all it is a 16-bit image, select the low frequency layer and subtract and add. Blending mode is add, not subtract. Opacity 100, scale is 2, offset 0, and make sure you check or invert this, and you'll have the textures on this gray kind of layer. Just come and hit OK. So we're going to put this, and before you can put them in a group, change the blending mode of the high frequency layer from normal to linear light, like that. So we're going to put these two in a group by hitting Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard, and you can see there is no difference between the background and the frequency separation group. So I'm going to name this FS for frequency separation. So we're going to open this and select the high frequency layer, come to the adjustments and create a black and white adjustment layer. So we're going to darken it to see every imperfect skin tone in the image. So always make sure your caps lock key is not on, because when it is on, every tool you're going to be using is going to turn into a cross like you can see right now. So make sure you turn it off. Select the low frequency layer. So what we're going to do basically is we wanted to see the uneven skin tones that we're going to be blending using a mixer brush tool. So we're going to come and select the mixer brush tool. Make sure it is a clean one. So we have two options right here. Make sure you select the second option, because this option will enable us clean the brush automatically when we are trying to harmonize or blend or even out the skin tones. Wetness is going to be 9, load 75, mix at 90, and the flow at 100. So make sure sample all layers is not checked or marked. So you're going to increase on the size of the mixer brush tool by using the brackets on the keyboard right after the P key on the keyboard basically. So you're going to start blending, and when you're blending, make sure you're selected on the low frequency layer and start harmonizing or even evening out the skin tones using the mixer brush tool. So this tool is really a helpful tool, because sometimes when you have makeup that is not blended into the skin of the model quite well, this tool is going to really help you out deal with that issue or that problem at hand. So you should learn how to use the mixer brush tool in almost all your retouching, and even if you do use the dodging and burning or the micro dodging and burning technique for skin retouching, you should as well adopt the use of the mixer brush tool, because it is going to ease or make your work easy as a retoucher that uses dodging and burning for skin retouching. So how I'm blending the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. So you should resist from dragging your brush from one tonal variation to another, because it is going to be distorting the original tones and the shape of the model's face. So make sure you don't do that. Make sure you blend the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. And when you're doing so, make sure you don't over zoom into your image. Make sure you blend the image the way someone is going to be looking at it basically. So if I turn off the black and white layer and I show you guys our progress so far. This is the before after with just a few strokes of a mixer brush tool. So I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm going to just continue blending and harmonizing the skin tones using the mixer brush tool. So the only time you have to zoom in is when you're trying to blend a very tiny area on the images. So I'm going to slightly zoom in by hitting Ctrl plus or Command plus, because I want to blend the tones right here in these tiny areas of this image. So I'm basically just doing that, and I don't want this tutorial to be more than 30 minutes, because I know most of you guys don't have that enough time or that so much time at your disposal, and I just want to do this very fast enough. I think we are almost good to go. So come and blend the neck area. I know some retouchers only blend the face and they leave out the other body parts like the neck. So come and also blend the neck. It is mandatory that you also have to blend the neck. So just come and also blend the hand, because this is more of a beauty image or a beauty portrait. So make sure you just blend it. I hope you're seeing what I'm doing to this image. I'm sorry about the noise in the background. So you're basically trying to blend or even out the skin tones in the image using a mixer brush tool. And the way I'm doing this, I'm decreasing and increasing on the size of the mixer brush tool depending on the area I'm trying to blend, like that. So when you're done doing so, keep on checking on your progress by turning off the black and white layer and see the before and after, before, after. So just want to now see where we haven't blended in the image. So I'm going to decrease on the size and also blend this area. So we're going to come right to the hair area and also blend these tones right into the image, like that. So I think we are done using a mixer brush tool. And when you are done doing so, you're going to select the black and white and hit delete on the keyboard and come back and select the low frequency layer. So basically what we want to do, we want to harmonize or blend the areas we may have missed out when we are using a mixer brush tool. So this time around we're going to get the lasso tool, feathering 22 pixels, and alias is checked or marked. We are going to now zoom in. So this step you can now zoom in into your image and make a selection on the skin area. So it is only selecting on the skin area, so you should resist from selecting the eyebrows and other edges of your images. So only select the skin. So come to filter, you have to zoom out, come to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So for this case we are going to move this until we are seeing the best skin texture for our image. So for this case I think at around 30 we have a nice skin texture. You can see it is really nice and natural. So we want to apply this effect onto the rest of the image and fine-tune it even more. So just click OK, and now we're going to zoom in and start making shapes or selections on the skin. So the way light is falling on the image. So right click and click on Gaussian blur. You're going to come right down here and also make another shape like that. So simply right click and click on Gaussian blur, and if at all you feel the effect is too much, simply click Shift Ctrl or F or Shift Command F and you can reduce on the opacity of the effect in a particular area. So that is what we are basically trying to do to this image. We are just trying to blend or even out the skin tones even more for the areas we may have missed out when we are using the mixer brush tool to blend or harmonize the skin tones of this beautiful model. So just right click and apply Gaussian blur. So we're going to come and make that shape. Right click and come to Gaussian blur. So before we can even proceed even more, let me first of all apply the effect right here. And I show you the mistake most retouchers do before we can even proceed. So right click and click on Gaussian blur. So what most people do is when they come to the nose area, they are going to come and apply the effect. So come and apply it right there. And also come and apply it on this shadow area too. So after doing so, most retouchers tend to come to the nose area and they apply the effect right there. So the reason for doing so, you're going to notice that the beautiful highlight we initially had here has gotten lost. So what you have to do as a retoucher is you have to reduce on the opacity of that effect by hitting Shift Command F to bring back shape or dimension or that beautiful highlight on the nose area. So hit OK and you can see where we are right now. I think we are done doing the skin retouching. You can see the before and after for this very image, and we have done a pretty nice job. So what I would love to do, I'm going to now close the frequency separation group and I'm going to come to the dodging and burning, and for this case or for a series of these images I've always wanted to use the selective or the color range option. So you have to do that and you'll get the best out of your images. So we're going to come right to the curves adjustment layer and you're going to select it, and now after doing so come to the select option and come to color range, And we are, first of all, we want to select the highlights, and before you can do that, make sure your quick mask is selected and selection is activated. So come and select the highlights first for the image, and when you can do that, and by moving the fuzziness to have a more refined selection on the highlights like that, and now hit OK. And remember, for the highlights, we just want to enhance them, and when we are doing that, we'll be dodging, so just enhance the highlights like that. And you're going to close that, and you're going to name that dodge, and you're going to do the same for the burning or for the shadows. Come back to the curves and select it, and now come to select color range, and now we're going to come to the shadows in the image. So we're going to come right there to the shadows, and you're going to play around with the fuzziness until we feel like the shadows are selected. Hit OK, and you're going to make a midpoint and just drag down like that to enhance the shadows in this image. So we are going to name that burn. Hit enter, and you're going to select both, and you're going to hit Ctrl Command G. We're going to name this D and B for dodging and burning. So you can see the before and after, before after. We have some nice solid colors added into the image. After doing so, you're now going to start color grading this very image even more. You're going to come to selective color. You're going to come to the blacks first of all, and just pull the blacks in like that to around 5, and come to the yellows and also pull them to around -5. Then you're going to create a stamp visible layer or a screenshot for all you have done for skin retouching and dodging and burning by hitting Shift Alternate Ctrl E on the keyboard, or Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard, and you're going to duplicate that layer by hitting Ctrl or Command J. Then come to filter and come to camera raw filter. So under camera raw filter, we're going to be doing the eye whitening and the color grading. Furthermore, we're going to come down to the calibration option, and we are going to reduce on the saturation of the reds in the image to around -10, and also the saturation of the green primary to around -10. You can see now how the image is turning out to look. And we are going to also come to the saturation, and also going to knock it down to around -5. So you can see, if at all I'm to show you guys the before and after, you can see the image is now turning out to look awesome. I'm basically going to come up to my HSL panel, and I'm going to come to the, first of all, to the luminance of the oranges, and I'm just going to drop it down to around -5. I'm going to come to the hues of the oranges and see what is going to work best for me for this very image. So for this case, I'm going to go in for around +1. I think that looks okay and good. I'm going to zoom into the eyes, because now I want to whiten the eyes of this model. So come to the adjustment brush tool, and how I always do this is because I usually have color in the white area of the eye and some yellow colors in the eyes. So I come to the temperature and set the brush to around -26 in order to eliminate the temperatures or the yellowness in the white area. So I have to go with the opposite of yellow, which is blue, and add some tint to around 60, and also come to the highlights, because I want the eyes to pop to around 4 plus the whites to around 3. And since we have this color in the white area, I come to the saturation and knock it all the way down to around -65, and after doing that, I'll be good to go. So I'm just going to start painting over the white area. Only paint over on the white area. You don't have to paint over that corner, because that corner is usually it usually has these colors naturally, so you shouldn't paint over it, because you'll end up having eyes that are not looking natural at all. So hold down the space bar and come this second eye, and also just whiten it. So I'm basically using the adjustment brush tool to do the eye whitening. So I'm going to come all the way down to the teeth of the model and also whiten them. I hope you guys can see the difference we are having right now in real time, because this adjustment brush tool is really a powerful tool. I hope you're seeing and loving what I am doing. I'm going to hit Command minus to zoom out to show you guys the effect we have right now. So you can see the before after for our color grading and eye whitening. I'm going to hit OK, and after hitting OK, I'm going to do some further more color grading. So I'm going to come back to my first of all photo filter, and I want to pull down this image. I'm going to come right to cooling filter 82 and reduce on the density of that cooling filter like that to around 4. I think at 4 we are good to go. And after doing so, I'm basically going to come back to my selective color and come to the reds, and I'm just going to simply knock down the yellows slightly or a little bit like that. So you can see what I have right now. I'm going to come under the yellows, and I'm also going to reduce on the amount of yellow in the yellows of this very image. And finally come back to my blacks and also move this towards the yellows on the opposite of yellows, and add that beautiful feel to the image. So I'll show you guys the before and after for this image. I'm going to scroll all the way down. You can see the image initially before, after, before, after. You can see that it has turned out to look beautiful and amazing. And after doing so, you can now export your image by simply coming right here to File. You're going to come to Export and come to Export As, so that it doesn't change any color when you post it on social media or put it on another device. So just want to avoid that color shift from happening to the image. Come and select the format as JPEG, and now select the resampling tool by Cubic Sharper because you want a sharp image at your export time, and select both convert sRGB and embed color profile. And when you hit export, it's going to bring back this dialog or this little window where you have to store your image. So if at all you love this story, don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to drop a comment in the comment section. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and don't forget to keep practicing and keep creating.